Hello, hi everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. My name is Tariq Mohammadi, and today we are so happy and proud that we can present 32 speakers from all over the world. We have speakers from Afghanistan, we have speakers from Spain, from Sweden, from Singapore, from Australia, from Argentina, from Peru. We have so many good tips, tricks that you can put in your life, that you can use it to have a beautiful future. As you may know, as you have already guessed, our summit is about female leadership. The title of our event is The Impact of Women in Society and Leadership. So all these 32 speakers, they are bringing their flowers and presenting them to you as a listener, so you can have a better understanding about the topic, or maybe a better future by applying those methods and tricks in your life. As I told you, we have 32 speakers. We divide them, or I can say we have 32 flowers. We divided them in 8 different parts. Each part have 4 speakers. There are topics, or maybe different, but they are from same baskets. They are maybe having 40 years of experience and wisdom. I know it's not possible to share it in 13 or 18 or 14 minutes. It's not possible. But as the focus, our focus is Afghanistan, we try to bring as much of ourselves as possible and put more light and focus on the subject. As you can guess, the majority of our speakers are female, so that they can communicate with the females of Afghanistan, so they can give their flowers, their wisdom. We have female speakers from Afghanistan. 95% of our members are still in Afghanistan. They are looking for a beautiful, a bright future, and they're trying to work for it, to get it. So in this part 1, in this part we have 4 speakers. We have speakers from Singapore, we have speakers from Ireland, we have speakers from... Okay. You will get to know more about them. I start with our first speakers. She's so good in mindset and how you can develop yourself under pressure, under the changes. How you can use those opportunities, not problems, those opportunity to develop yourself as a female or as a human. She's expert in this area. She's one of the top 10 motivational speakers in Singapore. She is Karren Leong. Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to the Karren Leong. Thank you so much.
Hello, it's wonderful to be speaking with you today at the Women Global Leadership Summit, a cause that is dear to me and is also very relevant in light of the recent events pertaining to women, especially in Afghanistan. I thought of starting by sharing with you 2 sentences that we hear very often. Things are changing. Times are hard. I'm sure that you would have heard these many times, not just in these recent times, but repeatedly over the years. I have too. And that is the point I wish to make. Because ever since we human beings emerged about 2 million years ago, things have been changing. And change is usually hard to deal with. But the fact remains, the reason why we as human beings have survived through every reality is because we're not only adaptable to change, we thrive on it. You know, change forces us to re-examine the way we look at and the way we do things. And change also brings out the creative, resilient best in us. And today, that is what I'd like to talk about. How can we ensure that we are always ready for whatever reality that the future brings to us? And so, when it comes to readying ourselves for constant change, we can decide on whether we want to focus on skill set or mindset. I'm sure that you will agree, to prepare to get skill sets for a future that's always changing and often hard to foresee, it's tough. Now, if you look back at the last 15 to 20 years alone, you will notice many jobs have vanished. And the way things are evolving, it's almost certain in the next coming 5, 10 years, many more jobs, professions will disappear, or at least mutate beyond recognition. Which is why, though enhancing skill sets and acquiring new ones is important, I believe it is essential we first work on our mindset. So today, I like to focus on 3 aspects of our mindsets that are fully within our control, and enhancing these will dramatically uplift the quality of our lives. And to bring out these 3 things, I will be sharing 3 stories with you. So let me share with you the very first story. And that is of a lady that I was coaching. She was a director in the civil services in her mid-30s. You know, during every first coaching session, I like to get to know the person well. So I asked her to share her story. And she told me how as a young teen, she had lost her dad. She had to take on a job to help her illiterate mom provide for the family. And she also had to take care of her brother, who was a special needs child. Through all that, she had put herself through school. She then graduated from university, joined the civil services, and then risen through the ranks to become a director. And now she was married, taking care of all the commitments that married life entails, while juggling a high-pressure job, and she's still taking care of her mom, who now has dementia. And she's also the sole caregiver to her special needs brother. You know, when she finished sharing, I asked her, if I had told your story as mine, what would you say about me? That's when she said, thoughtfully, she says, well, you know, I say that you are a very resilient, adaptable, persistent, determined, hardworking, and family-oriented person. I then asked her, do you recognize that you have consistently demonstrated these qualities? You know, by now, she teared up and she shook her head. And she says, not really. I mean, I never saw it as that. I was just coping with life, taking one step at a time and meeting each challenge as it came up. And that is the reason why I shared this story with you. Because each of us has gone through many challenges. And some of you would have had to deal with harder obstacles than most. And very often we tend to be so busy with life that we lose sight of our strength, our inner resources. I mean, these qualities that allow us to flourish despite the challenges that we face. And these inner resources of us has gotten us this far and will, with some slight calibrations, get us as far as we wish to go. Now I would like to ask you to reflect. You to look back in your life, to all the things you have been through. And ask yourself, what are the challenges that you have overcome? And what are the milestones that you have achieved? I've given you some challenges and milestones that so many people have been through. And I trust that you would have gone through several, 7, 8, or likely more. So take a moment and just number, how many of these have you been through? And with this, I'm going to ask you the next question. To have gone through so much, what are the inner resources that have helped you? Here are a list of inner resources. I mean, you can just Google, for a list of many more. But do note that we are born with all the inner resources that we need to thrive. So as you look at this list, can you think about the inner resources that you've consistently used in your life? And can you also take note of the inner resources which you may have lost sight of? And I want to share with you, when we lose sight of certain inner resources, it's not that they disappear. It's just that they stay latent. They stay dormant. It's something like the muscles that you haven't used in a while. They don't go away. They just lie dormant. But once you become aware of them, it's easy to kind of give them a workout. And when you do so, they come alive and they become stronger. So I'd like you to do this first thing that I want to share with you, which is to rediscover your inner resources. Because this will rejuvenate and recharge you. What can be possible if you rediscovered your resources and harnessed your powerful strength? And with this, let me move on to the second thing. For this, I'll be sharing with you a story about the early part of my corporate career. After audit, I moved on to business consulting. And when I was doing business consulting, I loved it so much that I threw myself headlong into it. And I was so consumed about my work that I forgot something essential. I forgot to pace myself. And so in a couple of years, I was completely burnt out. And at one point, I was snapping at everyone, personal and professional. Then something snapped in me. But I didn't know how to fix the problem. So I decided to do something really simple. If you can't fix your own problem, you can go focus on other people's problems. And that's what I did. I took a sabbatical. I went off to Amsterdam and I started volunteering in a not-for-profit, helping victims of trafficking. Now, if I thought I had problems being burnt out, I got the rudest awakening when I met these survivors and the problems that they were dealing with. But that turned out to be an enlightening phase of my life, because working with these survivors, I realized that no matter what they had been through, they were incredibly resilient. And that's one thing that struck home for me. Because in my youth and in my ignorance and enthusiasm to do a great job, and because I love consulting, I had forgotten to pace myself. And I was not able to sustain my momentum. I had forgotten this rule. We need to retain some reserves. And how critical is it to hold back some reserves? I mean, let me share with you another story. Because I remember that I had come back to Singapore and I've gotten to know a person who had climbed Mount Everest. And that's when he shared with me something interesting. He said, most deaths on Mount Everest are of people on the way down rather on the way up. And that's when I said, that's seems really hard to believe, because isn't going up the mountain harder than coming down? And that's when he says, yes, it's harder to go up, but the people who had succumbed are those who had given their all climbing up the mountain. And so when they're coming down, they have no reserves left. So even the smallest thing can bring them down. And that's when I realized this was what had happened to me. So it hit me, it's that, life is like something like a jockey, a jockey who's riding a horse in a 100-meter sprint rides differently from one that is racing in a long distance, say 800-meter race. Because when you're doing a long distance race, the jockey will not release the reins until the last 100 meters. This race is like life, except that in life, we seldom know when the last 100 meter is. So to go the distance in life, we need to retain some reserves. Whether it's a reserve in time, a reserve in your physical well-being, emotional energy, money, make sure that in every area of your life, retain some reserves. So at this moment, take a pause and ask yourself, am I retaining that little bit of reserve that would hold me in good stead when the next storm hits? Because in life, there will be a next storm. And with that, let's move on to my third point. Now, this relates to a time where I stumbled into the world of public speaking. When I came back to Singapore after my not-for-profit stint in Amsterdam, I focused a lot on personal development, learning from thought leaders and speakers. I mean, this reminded me about my love for public speaking. It's just that I didn't have the confidence to get up on stage myself. In fact, I never thought I would ever be a public speaker. But then I thought that it would be great if I started a business bringing in the best global speakers and thought leaders and connecting them with people here in Singapore. And that is what I did. And I was doing it for a while, and I remember one time where my clients called me and they said they needed a speaker at very short notice. And I shared with them that, the date was so short that there wouldn't be enough time to fly in a speaker from overseas. And that's when the client shared that, Karren, I'm not looking for anybody. I'm looking for you. And that is when I laughed. I said, are you kidding? Because I literally never saw myself as a speaker. And that's when my client said, Karren, I've heard you talk. I know your story. And you will add incredible value. You will be a source of inspiration. Because we're not looking for the typical big-name CEO or a celebrity. I mean, we're looking for someone like you, like a girl next door who became successful. It will be something that would resonate with so many. And that's when I said, no, I'm not doing it. But obviously, my clients' persuasive skills were better than my ability to say no. And soon I found myself on stage, to my shock and horror. I did the talk. Well, I don't remember exactly what I did because it was kind of a blur. But what I remembered is that after I was finished talking, there was a lot of applause. Did I do a good job? I'm not sure. Did I do a good enough job? I guess so. Because after that engagement, I got several more requests to speak, and after that, even more. And now it's been almost 10 years that I speak globally, addressing audiences from all around the world. And the funny thing is that sometimes I reflect and I think, what would have happened if I dug in a bit more? If I said no with more conviction? I would have missed this life-changing opportunity. But by throwing myself open and just saying yes to what was in front of me, it unleashed a whole new reality for me. And that is when I realized the power of being opportunity-focused. And that is the third thing I'd like to share with you. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, take a moment, and reflect. What is an opportunity that you wish will come your way? Remember the first thought that comes into your head, and remember the feeling of having that opportunity in front of you. You know, here's another thing. Opportunities are often disguised as obstacles. And a good way to uncover them is to ask yourself this: what's the opportunity in this? You will be amazed at how you will start seeing opportunities in even the most unlikely of situations. And so that's the third thing I want to share with you. So in summary, remember these three things that would give us the attitude advantage. Number one, rediscover your inner resources. Number two, retain some reserves. Number three, be opportunity focused. You know, before I go, I thought of sharing with you one last thing. It was a story about a fellow panelist at a conference. And this panelist, she had successfully led the transformation of an international bank. And I remember that when, she shared her story, she said that she was a seasoned commercial banker with no technical background, but she had taken up the job, nevertheless, to head up the technology division. I remarked to her, I said, that must be really challenging. And she said, yes. Initially, I thought it would be such a challenge for me because I'm a hardcore banker. What do I know about technology? But then she said, strangely enough, not knowing turned out to be my biggest strength. And she said, if I had a tech background, I would have been hemmed in by what's possible. But because I didn't know, I focused on what's desirable. I asked a lot of questions, to my clients, internal and external. And then I also asked a lot of questions to my tech team. And because I knew what my customers wanted, and my vision was very, very clear, I said to my tech team, this is what we're going to make happen. You know what? They rose to the occasion. And I was able to harness their experience and expertise to make that vision come alive. So I wanted to share with you the distinction between playing the realm of what's desirable, not just what's possible. Why did I leave you with this story? Because we are living in an increasingly complex world. that's fast changing and has more and more challenges. And it's not possible for us to know everything. And if we think that the only way to lead and influence is by knowing it all, we will set ourselves up for failure and a lot of stress. And worse still, we might not even raise our hands to lead. But what we perceive as a weakness, not knowing, can be a powerful strength. Because not knowing enables us to be more curious, and that allows us to tap our creativity. And not knowing can also be a gateway to greater empathy, more listening, and more collaboration. Whatever stage of knowing you are, know that you can be the catalyst in achieving what people think is not possible. You can make it possible just with your mindset and your attitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Karren. That was so amazing. The next speaker is from Sweden. Her focus is on listening. How to unleash your power, your listening power. She's expert in this area. She published a book about it, The Art of Listening. Go and read it. We think we are a speaker association, but we think listening is so important. That's why if you go back in our Facebook page, 2018, 2019, you can just read so much material about this subject, about listening. So ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to listen carefully about listening from Annika Telleus from Sweden. Thank you so much.
Dear colleagues of Professional Speakers Association Afghanistan, imagine being on stage. The audience, it's a big audience. You are all in the same room and you're giving the speech of your life. And the audience is fully present, grasping each word you say. They are really listening. And the better they are at listening, the better speaker you become. And the better you are at speaking, the better listeners they become. And this is the same in every situation in life. In our families, in society, we need both listening and speaking. My name is Annika Telleus, and I was a researcher at H&M for 16 years. I traveled the world to listen to consumers and co-workers all around. And one day I heard this tiny voice from inside start, hello, hello, it's time to do something else. I'm your calling, hello, please listen to me. It took a while, and suddenly the voice was louder, and I start listening. And it said, your calling is calling, and your calling is to unleashing the power of listening into the world. Because it's really a power. It's powerful, the listening. And it is a skill that we have to develop. And we have to develop it to empower each other. Because when we are in tough times, tough situations, we need someone to listen to us, to empower us. And this is what this speech is all about. To become a better listener, the first big step is to remove things that are disturbing. When you are in, as an audience, listening to a speech, turn your phone off And when you are speaking to someone close to you, turn your phone off, because it's disturbing and quite often it takes your attention away. And some of you might figure out, why on earth is there a hanger on the wall behind me? Yeah, that can disturb so much that you can't listen to me. But I will tell you why the hanger is there. Because this is a metaphor for listening. And this side is all about listening to others. How important that is for you and for the other person as well. When you are listening to someone, your understanding will grow and you will feel more trust between the two of you, and you will get new perspectives and new ideas. But you can't just listen. You have to be listened to as well. And when you are listened to, maybe it's like your thoughts are a mess. That happens to me a lot. I don't know about you, but sometimes it's a bit messy up here. And when I have someone that's listening without interrupting, without judging, without giving advice, just listening to me, sometimes it's like I get the end of a yarn that's in the mess and I can pull, and suddenly it's like, oh, here's the message. It's quite clear when I have spoken up and someone was there to listen to me. It's the third side on this hanger as well that gives strength to the hanger. And it's all about listening to yourself, to hear your calling, to know where you're going, what you're doing, and why. Your values, your vision, your mission. And here in Sweden we have quite cold winters, and my coat for the winter is quite heavy. And I have done the mistake several times. Yes, several times. I didn't learn the first time. But some hangers are not this solid. They are missing the bar and they're quite weak. And I put my heavy winter coat on that hanger and whack! Suddenly I stand there with the hook and the rest of the hanger and my coat is on the floor. Because that hanger has not the strength which is needed in heavy times and for a heavy winter coat. So in our lives, in our organizations and in our society, we really need listening to ourselves and to hear our inner voices. And that's a step to gain strength. And sometimes we need someone else to listen to us, to hear our own voice. And I don't know if you know how your body is talking to you. Maybe it's like you are up in your head. That happened to me like 30 years of the first 30 years of my life. I was most of the time in my head. And then I've started listening to my body, my emotions. Mainly my emotions are in my body. It can be like a tingling feeling in my stomach of excitement. I want to do something. I feel eager. Or it can be like in my throat. I don't want to speak up. I don't want to do this. It's like that's my body talking to me, giving me signs. And I don't know about your body, but start listening and be curious about what signals you are getting. When talking about listening, I have a beanie, and this is a listening beanie, and that's another metaphor that I use in organizations to talk about listening. And when you have these warm ears, yeah, it's cold in Sweden, so I often have this beanie on, not just as a metaphor, but every time going out, even now in spring. But using it as a metaphor, it's quite obvious that we can't listen all the time. Sometimes my beanie is going off, but when it's on, I'm present. I'm like the audience you had when giving your the speech of your life, fully present, eager to know, not judging, not interrupting. I'm there for you with my warm ears. I'm curious. I want to know. I want to get your perspective. I'm there for you. But in some meetings, some situations, maybe you're giving me feedback, or you're giving information about you're a leader and you want to bring some information to me, and my mind is starting, it's a mess once again inside me, and then my beanie is going off and I can't listen. And then the good thing about if everyone in the organization have the same picture of a beanie on and off, I can tell you that I'm sorry, my beanie is off at the moment. I can't absorb any more information. It's not your fault. It's what's happening in me. Can we continue tomorrow, the next week, when I have the beanie on again? And it's also the same thing as if I'm coming to you to tell you something that's important for me, and you have a quite heavy workload and you are into a deadline, and you can't listen to me at the same time when doing what you have to do. If you tell me that I have this deadline, I can't have my beanie on right now, but I really want to listen to you with my full attention, so can we see each other at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I promise I will have the beanie on. Then we have a language, and we can talk about from our own perspectives, is the beanie on or off? And that can help us to be better at listening. And I want to do a small exercise to take the temperature of the listening in your life at the moment. You don't have to do much. Be curious and listen, and sit in a relaxed way. Take a few deep breaths and close your eyes if you feel comfortable, and be curious about what's happening to you when I read this short part from my book. It's about the 3 different sides of the hanger. It's about being listened to. It's about listening, and it's about listening to yourself. So take one deep breath, close your eyes and relax. Who listens to you? Who listens to you with full focus on you and what you say? Who listens to you without interrupting, to let you find your own answers? Who listens to you and is open to what you say? Who listens to you because you are you? Who do you listen to? Who do you listen to with full focus on that person and what that person is saying? Who do you listen to without interrupting and letting them find their own answers? Who do you listen to and are completely open to what he or she is saying? Who are you listening to because that person is that person? How do you listen to yourself? Do you listen to yourself with full focus on your thoughts and feelings? Do you listen to yourself and let your thoughts be finished and find your own answers? Do you listen to yourself and are completely open to what you think and feel? Do you listen to yourself because you are you? I don't know what happened to you, but sometimes when I've done this in different organizations, different countries, different settings, some people are a bit sorry because they are not listening to themselves, or they don't have anyone listening, or they are not listening to people that are important to them. Other people are, yes, I am listening to myself. I have people listening to me, and I'm quite good at listening to others. And if you, on either of these sides, this is just what is the temperature of your listening on the different areas right now. It can be totally different tomorrow. And we can ask for someone to listen to us. And in the organization of Professional Speakers Association, you can help each other. You can empower each other by listening to each other. And to see that you have the beanie on while listening. Because something is happening and we're going to a better place together. The trust is growing, the misunderstandings are decreasing, and the collaboration will be so much smoother. I will be my best version, and I will feel seen, heard, important when you are listening to me. My son was coming home from school. I guess he was like 7 or 8 years old, and they had like a huge disagreement in his class, and he was quite upset. And as a speaker I have these props, so I took one of my props and I used it in the conversation with my son. And I said to him that I put this on the floor between us, and I asked him, what figure do you see? And he said, I see a 6. And I tried to convince him that it was actually a 9, because that was my perspective. And sometimes when we are trying to convince another person, we speak up louder, and we are quite vivid in our language and expression to convince another person. And sometimes it's not, I guess most people are not convinced by someone speaking up louder and louder. But what happens if I invited you to come to my place and to see the world as I see the world? Is it a 6 or a 9? When doing this, if I invite you, maybe it's so much easier if I'm the first one going to where you are standing, to see the world as you are seeing the world, to get your perspective. Because otherwise I expect something of you that I'm not willing to give, and maybe I have to be the one starting. And my son was, got it. And then he was saying, but Mom, how about the person lying on the floor? Okay, I haven't seen him, but please tell me more about the person lying on the floor. And then my son, he said, yeah, he's lying on the floor and he sees the figure from the side, so he sees number 1. I thought I was giving my son education. I was quite proud of my 2 perspectives, and suddenly there was yet another perspective. Is it 6? Is it 9? Or is it even 1? Sometimes we see the world as 9 and we can't see the other perspectives. We can help each other and we can help ourselves to see other perspectives by listening. And another view or point of listening is that I'm saying things and I'm thinking things. It's not always these are the same. We have a lot of people saying a lot of things, maybe without thinking, and there are a lot of us thinking a lot of things, not saying them. By listening, we can help each of them. The one just thinking, if we ask the right questions, they can put their thoughts into words. And these talking without thinking, with the right questions and listening to try to understand, we can help them evolve their thinking. And when we listen in a really, really good way, it's like we are in this green area. So me listening to you can help you being here to put words on your thoughts. And the better I am at listening, the bigger this green field is growing. And to travel this a bit more, this is about you, this is about me, because not in every discussion I have the same view as you have, or you are telling me something and you're putting that into words, but my interpretation is something totally different. So when we can listen to each other in a really, really good way and asking the right questions, we can be in the golden middle. where what you are saying is the same as I bring from that conversation. My husband and I was out driving, and he was the driver and I was starting to get a bit hungry. And when getting hungry, I can be a bit irritated when the blood sugar is going low. And then I realized that soon there is a good restaurant. So I told my husband that in just a few kilometers there is a really good restaurant. And he said, yeah, I heard about it. It should, yeah, I heard it's really good too. And drive past the restaurant. And but we were going to turn there and eat at the restaurant. And then I realized, in my mind, I said, I'm hungry, let's stop at the restaurant. But what came out of my mouth is, I've heard it's a good restaurant in a few kilometers. So my husband, he confirmed what I said. He didn't know what I was thinking. So I have to take responsibility of that. What I'm thinking is what's coming out of my mind, of my mouth. And as listeners, we can ask another question. When driving, someone is talking about a restaurant. Do you want me to stop at the restaurant? So we can help each other and we can help ourselves. And the understanding will really grow when we are doing that. So to summarize this, we have to put the listening beanie on sometimes. The more often we put it on and practice, the better listeners we become. And that will really make an impact in our lives. And as well, we can tell that my beanie is going off. I don't have time. I'm stressed. Something is going on. Please let us continue another day. We can use the hanger and improve listening to others, being listened to, and start listening to ourselves. That gives strength and improve our lives, our organizations, our society. We can start talking about perspectives. Is it 6? Is it 9? Or is it even someone lying on the floor seeing number 1? And what's on my mind? What's coming out of my mouth? And what do you take from that? Are we in the golden middle? And I think if we have this in place, we can empower each other. We will be able to empower ourselves, and the world will be a better place. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm really looking forward to listen to you. Thank you.
That was great from Annika, and now we are going to introduce a very, very smart speaker. That's why I'm saying that he is smart, because he can encourage you. He is so good at encouraging people to use their ability differently. He is expert in 3D thinking. He will explain more about 3D thinking. He is from Ireland, and in his speech, we have he gathered so many of his colleagues, his female colleague, to say hi for females of Afghanistan. He is, ladies and gentlemen, he is Andy Hanselman. Thank you so much. Let's go and listen to him. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Andy Hanselman. I am speaking to you today from Sheffield in the north of the UK. It's a city famous for its stainless steel that goes all over the world, and it's also a city of sanctuary. I'm a consultant. I help businesses, their leaders, their people get better at what they do by what we call thinking in 3D. And that's all about being dramatically and demonstrably different. And I speak at conferences around the world with a real mix of businesses, internationally, but also locally. Here are some of our local clients just saying hello to you over there in Afghanistan and giving you a warm welcome from sunny Sheffield. The aim of my presentation is to help you understand what winning leaders have and do. It's to take a dramatically and demonstrably different approach to the way you lead, both yourself and others, and help you identify the steps to make it work for you as a leader. Just to let you know that you can download the slides and other resources from my website. We'll put this up a couple of times. You'll make sure you get the access to this information so you can access and use these things as you see fit. And I want to start off by just asking the question, what exactly is leadership? And our definition of leadership is this: establishing a clear picture of the future that stimulates, excites and inspires, getting buy-in to that picture and achieving it by making others better, both when you're there and when you're not. There's a lot there, but it's about getting a vision, getting people on board with you and helping them help you get there. And I think it's worth pointing out that leadership is not just in business, it's definitely not just in men. And what we see in the best leadership is that it's actually happening at the top of businesses, but it happens in the middle, at the front end of businesses. It happens in education. It happens in small businesses. It happens in communities, and it happens in families. In other words, leadership happens and can happen everywhere, and that means it can happen in terms of what you do and how you do it. That means you. One of my favourite quotes from a very, very successful entrepreneur here in the UK called Anita Roddick, created an amazing business called Body Shop. And her quote, "If you think you are too small to make a difference, try going to bed with a mosquito." In other words, we can all make an impact and actually make this stuff work. And we are in a dramatically and demonstrably different world. Things are changing very, very quickly, just in terms of how we engage and how we communicate. Very simple example, if you were to look at all these motor car companies around the world and put a value on them, the last time I saw, they were valued at $654 billion. Tesla on their own were valued at $669 billion. Not right or wrong, just dramatically and demonstrably different. Apple announced earlier this year they sold more Apple iWatches in the whole world compared to the whole of the Swiss watchmaking industry. More Apple iWatches than the whole country that Switzerland can produce. Again, not right or wrong, I just argue dramatically and demonstrably different. In the UK, we have our first Amazon Fresh store, which basically means if you have your phone on you, you go into the store, you get your food, you put it in your bag, walk straight out again, and it invoices you for it. That is dramatically and demonstrably different. It means, therefore, we have to have a dramatically and demonstrably different approach. And what I'm going to do is share with you some examples and some stories of leaders who are making that happen. For example, Sophie Maxwell, based here in Sheffield, an incredibly successful entrepreneur, built a business which actually is in education, helping the children that maybe other educationists don't look after. It's a £2.5 million turnover business. Sophie once spent her time on the streets of Sheffield, homeless. Ali Ralston is an accountant, grew and built her own business, sold it, and now runs a business where 2.5% of her sales, the revenue she generates goes to help people in Nepal in a shelter, young women in a shelter in Nepal. Jay Bayani is a local entrepreneur who's actually built a very, very successful entrepreneurial business, and she's a lawyer, doing it in a dramatically and demonstrably different way. Jill White, who happens to be my wife, has grown business with me, and she's created an amazing network of women here in South Yorkshire and Sheffield to actually help each other and support each other what they do. They are all 3D leaders. They do things dramatically and demonstrably differently. Well, what do 3D leaders do? Well, there are 8 characteristics, and I'm not going to go through these in all detail because you can look at these. I've got an ebook you can look at to actually help you understand what these 8 characteristics are. It's a lot to go through in a short presentation, so download it, again, have a look at the ebook and see what you can do to make this stuff work for you. What I am going to do is share with you 5 ideas that we see 3D leaders do, things that you can do in your role, in your world, back in Afghanistan. And idea 1 is to get that vision thing. This is all about creating a clear picture of the future that stimulates, excites, and inspires. Trying to paint a picture of where you want to be. And I think it's worth pointing out when we start looking at this whole idea of a vision is that it's a picture of the future that you want. It needs to stimulate, excite, and inspire you, and hopefully inspire others as well. It's something for you and other people to work towards, and it gives you some sort of strategic focus. And one of the things I think it's worth pointing out when we start looking at this stuff is that it's about something that challenges, that stimulates. And I think Malala's goal of providing 130 million girls in the world with access to 12 years of free, safe, quality education, that is a very powerful vision. So what does this look like in the real world? Well, let's imagine I wanted to come to Afghanistan. How could I get to Afghanistan? Well, I could fly. I could go on the train, various trains. I could get bus. I could maybe drive. Maybe if I wanted to, I could sail and then drive across to Afghanistan. I could cycle it. I could walk. I could even row. And if I was really ambitious, maybe I could come across on a hot air balloon. If I said I wanted to be in Afghanistan in 4 days' time, then I suspect quite a few of those options disappear. But equally, if I just say Afghanistan, where in Afghanistan? If I say Barbertoon, Chiliston Road in 4 days' time, that starts to give me a very clear destination. Then I have to start working out how I'm going to get there, how's it going to work? And that is what this vision thing is all about. So something that you might want to consider is look ahead. I mean, typically when I work with clients, we talk about 3 years' time. So 3 years today, what will you have achieved? But if 3 years is a long way, well, 1 year. 1 year today, what will be in place? What will you have achieved? And here are some questions. And again, obviously, you can download these and use them to start helping shape your vision. But answer these questions. In 1 year's time, what will I have achieved? Think about finance, think about customers, think about people if you're talking about business. Think about you personally outside of your working life. What will be in place? What will be happening that isn't happening now? And what will you, others be saying, doing, feeling? It's about painting this picture that stimulates, excites, and inspires. And I would really encourage you to focus on the what, not the how. It's the destination. Spend some time thinking, working on what that looks like for you in your business, for your life. And then identify what are the key steps you need to take to make all this happen. So if you are thinking 12 months' time, then go, if that's got to happen, what needs to have happened in 6 months' time? What needs to have happened in 3 months' time? What needs to have happened by the end of this month? It starts to give you some key milestones to make this work for you. And one of the things that we see when we look at successful entrepreneurs, they focus on their vision. What are you doing to create your vision and focus on it? Idea 2 is to think smart. And one of my goals might be to maybe help speak to you in Afghan. Nama men asked Andy, man asked from Sheffield. I've done it. That's not quite the same as saying, one of my goals is to come to Afghanistan and speak at a conference in 2 years' time. And you can understand me. If we look at that in terms of a SMART goal, it's specific. I'm coming to Afghanistan to speak to you in a specific time. It's measurable. Can you understand me? It's achievable. What do I need to do to make it achievable? It's related to my overall vision of actually dominating the world in speaking. Not quite, but actually helping do this stuff around the world. And it's time bound, 2 years' time. That's very different from saying I'm going to learn how to speak in your language. Therefore, what I'm encouraging you to do is to turn your vision into SMART goals. That takes us on to idea 3. And what we see 3D leaders do is that they use their vision. They use their vision to shape what they do and how they do. An example, for example, and when you look at this, is to set monthly milestones. So if you've got this vision, maybe at the beginning of every month, identify what will have I achieved by the end of this month? What will have I achieved by the end of this week? What will have I achieved by the end of today? Refer it back to the vision, and if you've got other people involved in this, make sure that they understand what this means. Equally, use your vision to celebrate successes. Ali Ralston, her advice, celebrate wins, however big or small. That's Ali there. Idea 4, to help you maximize your leadership potential, is to create some thinking time. Do you ever get bogged down in the day-to-day work that you're doing? We see 3 levels of thinking in business: strategic, operational, and tactical. Tactical could be, how do I deal with this customer inquiry that's coming? Operational, how to set up a system or a process to deal with these customer inquiries. Strategic is, how do I create more of these inquiries and the sort that I want? And we talk about working on your business or in your business. And most of us spend lots of our time in, I love doing this, I could do this all day, every day, but I've got to find ways to do it better and to do it in other places. That's this whole idea of working on. 3D leaders consciously create time to think and work on their business. So some things to consider. Diary it, block some time out to do it. And if you've been listening to this and you're on this conference, don't necessarily do it straight away. Think ahead. Do it in a few weeks' time. Block some time out. Create an appointment with yourself. And I would actively encourage you to make yourself unavailable. Yes, shut the door, go offline, work elsewhere. Let people know what you're doing and explain why. But build it into what you do and how you do it. Gemma Hilbert, who works for Gymshark, she diaries a meeting with herself and has a core agenda every month. It's a proper meeting. She blocks time out. And that meeting is, she reflects. She looks back at last month's successes and mistakes, looks at what she's learned, and then looks at how she can move forward. She refocuses. She looks at her vision. She looks at her goals, uses it to shape and prioritize what she's doing, and then identifies the actions she's going to take. Practical steps you can take to think and work on your business. Katrina Flake, co-founder of Flickr. So often people are working hard at the wrong thing. Working on the right thing is probably more important than working hard. Create time to do this for you and for your business. And idea 5, big thing here, is connect and share your vision. One of the things that we see in this interconnected world is that successful entrepreneurs, 3D leaders, actually connect with other people. Hannah Jurade is a very successful entrepreneur here in Sheffield, and she actually talks about how she really benefited from creating a strong network of people who will support her, encourage her, and challenge her. Other entrepreneurs, and as she says, many have become great friends too. Here's a little checklist to help you identify who you could find to help make this stuff work for you. Again, you have to go through all of these. You can download it, but use this to help you identify who should you connect with to help you achieve your vision and make this work for you. Sophia Maxwell, lady I spoke about earlier, I think this is a great thing she does. Don't be afraid to ask for what you haven't got. Just get it out there. One of the things that Sophie has done is actually gone out there and actually asked for support, encouragement, and funding. Get out there, ask people. Jay Bayani suggests connect with people who have been down the path you are traveling. Find other leaders, find other entrepreneurs. They will provide advice, they'll provide support. And Jill, my wife, she suggests, please get in touch with us. We have a network of women who are here to help you, support you, and guide you. Here are just some of them. They're actually them, we've actually talked to them. They've all said, please, please, please get in touch, and we'll do all we can to help, support, provide guidance. We can connect you with other people. That's what this is all about. We can create a network of people. It's easy to do it, and we really would love you to please get in touch with us, find out how we can help you, and find out what they can do to support you in your goals to actually make it all work. So please, please, please do get in touch. So we've talked about 5 ideas. Idea 1, get that vision thing. Paint a picture of the future that stimulates, excites, and inspires. Turn it into smart goals. Think smart. Make sure you give yourself some sort of focus. Idea 3 is to use it. Use your vision to actually give you that focus to help shape what you do, how you do it. 4, create some thinking time. Build into what you do and how you do these things. And 5, connect and share. Please get in touch with people. Vision without action is hallucination. And Martin Luther King says, take the first step in faith. You have to see the whole staircase, just take that first step. Take the step. You'll find other people will help you. I would encourage you to please, please, please have a go at this. But the big one is this, take action, not notes. What are you going to do to make this work for you? So ask yourself this question, what are you going to do? Some options for you, some things to consider. As I say, we've put together a web page with some toolkits, some resources that you can actually access. Please, please, please have a go at these and find out how you can make these work for you. But another thing you might want to consider is you can access our online leadership training courses. There's a number of them, but 2 particular. One is about maximizing people performance. These are leadership courses. And one is actually about engaging and empowering from results. What we've done is we've actually put these on the website, and they are available for you as our friends in Afghanistan for free. There's about $100 worth there. We actively encourage you, please, please, please access them, use them, and get in touch. We will do all we can to help you make them work. Please, please, please do get in touch with us. You can do it via the QR code. You can do it via the link on the website. Link in, follow us on Twitter, email us. We'll do all we can to help you think in 3D and help you develop yourself as a leader. All I say is, Tashakor, I hope I've got it right. Thank you. Take care now. Bye.
That was great. That was so good. Thank you, Andy. Thank you so much. We are going to Australia. Let's listen from a speaker that she put hijab, Islamic hijab, and gave her speech for females of Afghanistan. We really appreciate this gesture, this kind of respect that she is showing for us. Thank you so much. She is talking about confidence, how you can bring that one up and how you can use it. She is starting her speech from her first very job and how she behaved and how that behavior can change our life. Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen from Sally Lewis from Australia.
It was 1992 when I got my very first job. And I wonder what your first job was. Mine, I was a recreation officer in a psychiatric hospital. I bet you were not expecting to hear that. It was a great job, but it was my first job and I was the most junior person in the department. And that meant I also had to do some of the administrative tasks on behalf of the whole team. Very menial tasks, but that's what happens when you start at the bottom. You have to do some of those things, and that's okay. One of those tasks was to do all the ordering of supplies for our team. So I would order tissues, pens, tea, coffee, anything the team needed. I was the one who did the ordering. It was an old carbon copy order book. I know, carbon paper. I just carbon dated myself, but I'd have to write the order out, sign my registered signature, take the page out, put it in an inter-office envelope and send it on its way. It's a bit like old school copy and paste. And then our supplies would arrive. Now, my annual leave, recreation leave, was coming up, and so I decided I needed to do a big order for the team while I was away. So I gathered everything up and I put that order in, and off I went on my holidays. When I came back, it was time to reorder again, and I was flicking through the pages of the order book, and then I noticed, oh, there's been an order while I was away. And then I looked further down the page and I saw my signature, but it wasn't me who signed it. And it dawned on me, someone's forged my signature. And I looked up and I blurted out my mouth right in front of my boss, someone's forged my signature. And my boss turned and looked at me and very flippant said, well, it was only 2 liters of milk. And right then, in that moment, my world was shifted. A complete smack, a complete bang to my values. Is it really just only milk, or is it something more serious like forging a signature? Right in that moment, I had my values challenged completely. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I could say to feel safe and okay. So my voice was silenced. And in that moment, I also felt incredibly small. I felt invisible and unimportant, and that I didn't matter. Now, maybe you've had a big event like that happen to you, where your values, your voice, and your visibility have all been challenged. Or maybe there's been a series of small things, which is quite common. You know, bosses these days can be really quite challenging, and it reminds me of a tool that my grandfather had in his workshop under his house. My grandfather was an amazing toy maker. He would make beautiful wooden toys for children who couldn't afford them. And he had every tool you could imagine in his workshop. And I remember the big wood plane that he had. And the plane would be run across the top of a piece of wood. And it would shave off a very thin layer of wood. And every time you go whoosh, a very thin layer of wood would come off. And maybe you've had a boss like that, where there'll be a situation where you're expressing your opinion about a particular project or piece of work, and your boss dismisses your ideas and dismisses your view, and you feel as though your opinion doesn't matter. Whoosh! There goes a shave of your enthusiasm. There goes a shave to your feeling valued. Or maybe you have an idea and you share that idea in the meeting and your boss ignores you. But then 2 people beside you, they share the same idea and the boss says, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. And you're left thinking, but that was my idea. Whoosh goes the plane of enthusiasm and shaves a little bit more away, a little bit more of your willingness to speak up. Or maybe you've been overlooked for an opportunity because someone else was far more visible. Someone else had some sort of ability to be seen by the boss and you haven't stood out to the boss. Or you just get overlooked because the boss doesn't see you the way you would like to be seen. And whoosh, there goes that plane where it just shaves a little bit of your visibility away. You know, when we do this and we go whoosh And whoosh, we keep shaving away enthusiasm. We keep shaving away people's sense of value, their voice, their visibility. But one of the things I know is really important when it comes to who you are. If we're wood, we might get shaved all the way down to nothing. But if we are steel, if we are strong, and strong as steel in our self-leadership, a plane cannot shave steel. So that's something to be really, really careful and to think about. You know, when I think about self-leadership, you know, when it's in play, when we have strong self-leadership, then we have great job satisfaction. We are enjoying the work we do. We have self-efficacy, which is the ability to handle whatever gets thrown at us. We can handle the challenges. We've got increased creativity and innovation. And we just perform better in our work. So self-leadership is critical for how we want to show up as leaders for ourselves and for others. And let me take that further for you, because I want you to keep in mind that when your self-leadership is strong, when you can lead yourself well, then you are in a better position to lead your people. And when your people are performing well and have got a great leader, then the operations will be well led too. And then when our operations are functioning and performing productively and efficiently and effectively, then we're really in a great position to be influential about strategy, and we get to lead or at least influence the strategy around us. So great leadership absolutely starts with exceptional self-leadership. So let's look at what self-leadership actually is. It's the process of influencing oneself. And when we think about that, it's about how you control and drive your own thoughts, feelings, and actions. You know, there's a few theories that come into play to help define self-leadership, and there's two I really want to share with you. And the first one is social cognitive theory. It's the capacity to manage or control yourself when faced with really difficult yet really important tasks. So it's about how you can handle the challenge when it's difficult but important to do. And then the next theory is the self-determination theory. And that are the natural rewards that you get from activities that you like to do. So when we've got the ability to handle the challenging work, that's really important, and we add self-determination where we actually get natural rewards from activities we like, and we mix that together, it helps to influence our self-leadership. And as I said, it helps us to then lead others well. So important that we start with our self-leadership so that we can be a great leader for and with others. So how do we know where we're at before we can be a great self-leader? Well, maybe there's a situation where we've been in our past where we haven't even thought about this. Maybe this is where you're at now. Maybe you can relate to this in some time in your life where you've not even thought about who you are and how you lead yourself. So you avoid this whole area of self-leading and we neglect ourselves. Yeah. Or if we move up, then maybe it's about understanding that there's a part of you that's so important, because what you know and learn about yourself impacts others. So you become awake. It's like you just discover yourself and understand that there's some work to be done, and that's okay. The next level up is that when we start to take that awake and then move it into the learning of ourselves. We understand that there's so much more to learn about ourselves, because when we do that, we become better self-leaders and therefore better leaders. So it's in this phase that we might be discovering new ways to learn. We might discover new things about ourselves, and so we might actively engage in learning processes. For example, if you've ever done a personality or behavioral type assessment, or you learn more about emotional intelligence, or you understand your values and who you are and what makes you think and feel the way you think and feel. And this is the acquiring phase. And after that, we become far more aware of who we are. We have this greater knowledge of self, and that means we're in a position to define ourselves. I know who I am. This is who I am. And you can define it in a way that makes sense for you. And then the fifth level is where we accept who we are. We are leading ourselves. It doesn't mean we stop here. It's a journey. What it means is that this is who I am and this is the journey that I'm taking, and I accept myself. And I love the word flawsome. F-L-A-W-E-S-O-M. Flawsome. And what that means is a combination of all our flaws and awesome. Because we're awesome with everything that we come to the table with, the good and the not so good. So take a moment now and putting all these together, so where would you say that you align yourself here? Yeah. Have there been times where you've avoided looking at your own self-leadership? You've not wanted to reflect and look at what your behavior or your thinking or your feelings are. Or maybe you're somewhere up here. Maybe you can see that sometimes you go up and sometimes you go down, and that's okay too. The critical piece to this is being able to identify. And being able to identify means that when you know that you are at a level, and that, say, for example, you're at the awake level here, you're at the discovery level, which means, I'm accepting that I have this work to do ahead of me. I'm discovering that there's more to me. And therefore, to move up the next level, we have a process of learning to do. Okay? So something to think about. Where would you say you sit today? So one of the big things to think about is we understand what self-leadership is, but how do we increase it? How do we amplify it? How do we make self-leadership exceptional so that we can be great leaders? So let's have a look at this model here. Okay. So when we talk about self-leadership and how we can actually spark self-leadership, I want you to think about, this is self-leadership, I want you to think about 3 V's. And the first V is value. Okay. And I'll explain all of this in a moment. So there's value, there's voice, and there's visibility. And when we think about that, we have to be mindful that when we have value as our first place to work on, it's understanding what our values are. It's being clear about the value that we bring. It's our self-awareness, our emotional intelligence. And when we think about our voice, it's the self-talk plus how we communicate with others. And then also our visibility. It's our self-image plus how we are seen by others. So it's really critical to be aware that when our value and our voice are really well aligned, then we will be seen as intelligent. And it's not just smart, it's not just clever and being, theoretically intelligent about our expertise, but it's also our social intelligence and our emotional intelligence. When our voice and visibility are aligned, then we will have an image that is positive in the eyes of others, as well as in ourselves. And then when our value and our visibility are aligned, then we are going to be seen as someone with integrity, which means we'll be seen as a go-to person, the person to trust or rely on in certain situations. So that's the model of how we can amplify our self-leadership. So let's dive into that a little bit further. With value, it's about knowing thyself. You know, it's about understanding certain things around what you will and will not accept. And boundaries is a really important one in this concept. When I very first became the CEO of the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, what came with that role as being the CEO was a pager. It was very old technology back then, but the pager was for emergencies only. The Duke of Edinburgh's Award is a youth program, and we would have young people out doing expeditions, camping, bushwalking, all sorts of great adventures. And so I was responsible to hold on to a pager, because if there was an accident or some emergency for the young people, I would be paged so that I could handle some of the administration issues or the urgent administration issues. Now, my very first day as being the CEO, the pager went beeping at 6 a.m. It was beeping. I panicked. I woke up. I was, oh my goodness, it's my first day and we've got an emergency. And so I've looked at the pager and it says, call Alan. And there was the phone number. Call Alan? Alan? But Alan's the chairman of our board. Why is he in an emergency? So I've rung Alan. Alan, is everything okay? What's going on? And Alan said to me, yeah, good morning. Everything's fine. I'm just ringing to have a chat with you about the issues I want to talk about with the program. I could not believe what I was hearing. And I said, Alan, it's 6 a.m. The pager is for emergencies. And he said, oh, well, I would always ring the last CEO every morning and we'd have a conversation. And I said to him right then, Alan, my work hours are 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And unless it's an emergency, that's the time that we're going to do our best work. I'm going to hang up now and I will call you when I get to work. And I hung the phone up and I thought, he might not like that, but I needed to be clear about my boundary. I needed him to know that the pager was for emergencies only. Now, when I got to work, I rang him and I said to him, my understanding of the pager is for absolute life-critical emergencies. When it went off this morning, I almost panicked. And he said, I didn't know that that's what you thought it was for. And I said, that's the policy. It says it. So I'm going to not be available unless it's an emergency. You need to know that. Now, I'm available from 8:30 to 5:30 plus the board meetings, and that is when we are going to do our best work. I pushed that boundary and I held that boundary. Did he like it? No. Did he get used to it? Yes. And when it was time for him to finish his role as the chairman of the board, he said to me, I took him out to lunch as a gesture to say thank you for him being the chairman. He said to me, Sally, I really appreciate the fact that you held that boundary. I didn't like it, but I understand it, and thank you, I appreciate it. So that was a really interesting learning around boundaries to have. And boundaries are so critical and so part of understanding our value. When we think about our value and self-leadership, do you know your values? And are they aligned to the work that you do, to the leader that you want to be? Do you understand the value that you bring to your people and the work that you do? How self-aware are you? How much work have you done to really understand who you are, your emotional intelligence? These two elements help us to set really strong, healthy, respectful boundaries. Then the next piece that we've got is our voice. Your silence serves no one. You've got to be mindful of when to speak up, what to say, when to say it, and who to say it to. I was a project officer for one particular role that I worked in, and we had this great piece of work that we were working on, and we'd have regular meetings. My boss would come into these meetings with me and talk about the project with everyone, and I wouldn't say much in these meetings. And there's one morning as we were walking towards the meeting, my boss said to me, "You know, the team needs to hear your voice." And I said, "What do you mean the team needs to hear my voice?" And he said to me, "The team needs to understand that you're the expert. They're looking to you for the expertise on this project." And I said, but you cover everything. The team discusses everything that we need to discuss. I will add when I need to add. I'm not afraid to speak up. And he said to me, "Well, they need to hear your voice because you have the voice of reason and the voice of expertise." And I said, "Well, I don't know when to speak up then, because as I said, you say everything that needs to be said. I would just be repeating you." And so he realized that he was actually taking my voice, not on purpose. And then he said, "I'm going to ask you a question in the meeting and I want to hear your voice." And it was from that meeting onwards, the boss would ask me a question. And so I would then be actively contributing, and it shifted the nature and the energy amongst the team. They saw me as the leader of that project, which is what I was, but they were probably looking more to the boss than they were to me. And from that meeting onwards, the boss sometimes would come to the meeting and make sure I spoke up, but also the boss didn't always come to every meeting and allowed me to lead those meetings as well. So where is it that you need to be speaking up more? And when it comes to our voice, it often starts with our own self-talk. You know, what do you say to yourself about yourself? It's really important to pick up on your self-talk and pay attention to how positive or negative it might be, and trying to shift that and understand why you speak to yourself the way you speak to yourself. And then our interpersonal communication skills. Any work that you do to improve the way you communicate with others will always help you have a stronger, more confident and influential voice. And then speaking up, taking that plunge, being able to regulate your breathing, answer questions, put questions forward, asking to have a seat at the table, asking to contribute so that you do have a voice that is valued. Seeing yourself as a valued partner at that table in that business helps you to have the voice that everyone needs to hear. And then when we move on to the third element of our visibility and taking that seat at the table, it's so important that we do take that seat and be seen as someone who can contribute, as the expert that you are. You know, one of the things that I think is really important to help us do this is our networking and finding a mentor. And I'll start with networking. When my husband and I moved from Abu Dhabi back to Australia, we moved into Australia in a whole new city that we hadn't lived in before. And so I instantly started networking. I went into one networking function per week for 6 months. So I could meet as many people and strengthen the relationships of the businesses and the people around me so they would get to know me. I became very visible very quickly. And that helped me build my business. It helped me to be seen as a leader. So when it comes to networking, what online and social networking platforms, what meetings and functions, what gatherings can you attend to contribute to be seen as a leader? And when you're in those environments, when you're in those networking functions, or you're a member of an association and you can actually attend functions, do you put your hand up to help? When you put your hand up and offer to help, you become more visible. For Professional Speakers Australia, when I first came back to Australia, I was always an active member in the chapter leadership teams in each state. I'm now currently a director on the board for the national board for Professional Speakers Australia. Why? Because I want to serve and help, but it also helps me be visible. So thinking about your visibility and how you can be seen. And so the networking is one of those really powerful ways you can do that. And a second way that you can do that is through mentoring. Be a mentor and also have a mentor. When we mentor others, we get to learn about ourselves even more, and they get to see who you are, and they will talk about you in really positive circles. They may recommend you to other people. And when we have mentors, they can advocate for you. They could sponsor you. They can invite you to meetings and functions and events that you might not ever have been aware of. And they can introduce you to different and interesting people and opportunities. So it's just some ideas there for mentoring. So mentoring and visibility is around our self-image. It starts with the inner work of our self-image. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself in a positive way, or do you see yourself in a not so positive way? When we have a positive self-image, we are far more healthy mentally and physically. We are more confident and influential. We have more courage to speak up. So thinking about working on your positive self-image is so important. Networking and mentoring, as I said, and saying yes to opportunities so that you can stand out. One of the ways in which you could do that is applying for awards, applying for being involved in organisation committees, helping and putting your hand up to help. So that's visibility. You know, like I said before, there can be those big moments that can really come and knock you, really challenge your values, your voice and the visibility, like that moment when I had my signature forged. Or they could be those over small things that happen regularly and they go whoosh, whoosh, and they shave away your strength, your confidence, your influence, like a wood plane does. You know, there's all these different things that can happen to us. So when we work on our self-leadership, when we amplify who we are igniting our exceptional self-leadership. It helps us to stand up for ourselves, to speak out the right way at the right time, and to stand out in the right way as well. And I just wanted to close by sharing with you one of the most important quotes that I have loved when it comes to self-leadership. And it is so important. And it was from the most amazing author of children's books, Dr. Seuss. He is an incredible mind. And I want to share with you, you have a brain in your head, your feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose.
Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you so much. That was so great. This was our fourth speaker, Karren, Andy, Sally, and Annika. All of them give you the best fruit and the best flowers of their life that you can enjoy, that you can smell. This was part 1. Thank you so much for keeping your time and listening to the part 1. Part 2 coming up next week. Take care. Up to next time, Tariq Mohammadi.